Hey, Kevin here, and this video is about a path to mortgage freedom. And so, if you're looking for a quick fix, this is not the video. There's no such thing as a quick fix on getting out of a mortgage. I don't believe. If I knew there was one, I would certainly be talking about it because I would have done it. But here's what I did do, and I will give you this pathway to finding your way into not having a mortgage. Now, here's the deal. If anybody hasn't figured it out already, your housing cost is your number one cost in life. You're going to spend more money having a roof over your head in your lifetime than you are on virtually anything else. The second most expensive thing that I typically see is transportation, and then the last or the third thing would be food. So in that order. So what if you could eliminate the number one largest cost of your living, and that being the mortgage or a house payment or rent, whatever you're doing, you're paying something somewhere to live under a roof, whether you own it or you're buying it or you're renting it or whatever, and it costs a lot of money. And in today's day and age, it seems like it costs more money than ever, which it probably does. And it doesn't ever feel like we have the wages that we should have for the cost of the living that we have to pay out for housing, but I digress. What I learned early on was I didn't like throwing money away on rent. That's what it felt like every time I made a rent payment when I was living in an apartment or a little house or whatever. And so I got really clear really quickly that I didn't want to do that. I wanted to spend money on something that was going to get me somewhere, whether that was saving money or investing in something like a house or a property. And so I had to figure it out. Now, wasn't born with a silver spoon. So if you think this is me saying, hey, everybody can do this, it's easy because I had lots of money behind me to do this, not true at all. In fact, I had almost no money the first piece of property I bought, and I got it out of a insurance settlement, the down payment, and we bought the property on a contract. It was just a flat 10-acre piece of ground, and there was nothing on it, so we had to build from there. And so we saved money. My wife and I both worked. We were raising 4 kids at the time, and I'm kind of going into this to tell you this. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of effort and discipline on our part to spend the money on trying to build a house without having to have a bank loan. The short story on that was I went into a bank one day after I bought the property and said, hey, I want to take out a loan to build a house. And they kind of laughed at me because they said, well, do you have any experience? And I said, no. And they said, well, how much do you think you need? And this is some years ago, so I said I needed about $65,000 to build a house. And they said, you can't build a house for $65,000. And I said, well, I'm not building the Taj Mahal, I'm building a modest home. And they said, well, when you get it built, come on back and we'll give you a loan. And I thought, well, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Why would I go get a loan on it after I built it out of my own pocket? So I walked out of there a little annoyed and determined at the same time to figure out how to do this one way or the other. Long story short, we built a very modest, small home. It was a 24-foot by 36-foot house, so just a hair under 1,000 square feet. Very small home on this 10 acres. We had to put in the water, the power, and the sewer, which we paid for out of our pockets as we saved the money to do it. And we got to the point where we could build the house and get enough of the house put together that we moved into it in a very unfinished state, not a whole lot farther than the one that I'm standing in. And then we lived there with our kids. It was 2 bedrooms, it was a bath and a half, and at the time it was an unfinished home. We had a functioning bathroom, and we had a little camp stove on a 5-gallon propane tank so that we could cook, and we had an old refrigerator for our groceries, and bare cement floors and insulation with plastic wrapped around the walls, and we made it work. And we finished the house as we had time. We weren't making a lot of money back in those days, certainly not compared to today. And so when our weekend fun was go down to Home Depot or Lowe's or one of the big box places and buy some building materials and come in and spend as much money as we could and then build into the house a little bit more. And eventually we got it pretty well done, and the kids were growing up, and my wife said to me, we probably ought to get a loan if we're gonna get this house finished all the way before the kids grow up. And I said, well, you got a point. So we did wind up with a mortgage, and we did wind up adding on to that house, but we lived in that small house for a number of years, and it was built for cash. So my monthly payment on that property at that time was $265 a month. So that was pretty economical. So one of the tenements to this process is keep your cost of living low. Don't get into a lot of debt, because if you're having to pay debt, mortgage or house payments, credit cards, car loans, whatever you have out there, that's taking money away from what you could be spending to build a house for cash. And so we did. We had some pretty lean years where we spent a lot of money getting the house finished up, and we wound up adding on to it. And at our highest point, I think our mortgage was 80 grand a year, which was on a 3,000 square foot house on 10 acres with a river running down the side of the property in a very nice area. And the kids, we could raise our kids there. We sold that house about 9 or 10 years ago. Made a nice profit on it, and wound up moving over to a coastal community on the beach. We wanted to live on the beach, and so we built a very small home there, even smaller. So just to give you some reference, this house was 24 by 24. And that is about the size of a 2-car garage. So very small home, but it was just my wife and I, and so it was a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, had a living room, dining room, kitchen in it, had a nice big front porch that was covered, which was another 12 by 24. So nice big covered patio out front. The climate there was very mild, so there was no snow. And so we had a lot of indoor-outdoor living, so the house felt bigger. And so the next thing, is keeping your costs down. Build a small home. Now you're gonna probably say, well, I don't know how to build a house. Well, I didn't exactly know how to build a house either. And so I learned, and guess what? You got it easier than I had it, because now you have YouTube, you have Google, you can learn how to do all this stuff. If you go back through my videos, I've got 10 years plus worth of videos on this channel. You can go back and see the building process. I started this channel to teach people how to build. I built a tiny house. You can go back in the videos and check that out and see how I framed it, because I taught people framing, because nobody was doing that back in those days, like 2010, somewhere in there. And so learn to build something small. Maybe you need to practice, so you go build yourself a tiny house or a small shed that you can turn into a cabin, or some variation of that. Or you can do another way is to go get yourself a little camp trailer or an RV, a pickup camper, something that you can live in on site while you're building and keep your cost of living down. When we built the house over on the coast, we had an RV. We lived in a fifth wheel RV for 2 years, right next door to the house, right in the driveway, while we built that house. So our cost of living was nothing, virtually. I mean, we kept our costs down. Our cars were paid for. Another thing to do. Don't have car payments. Go buy an older car, pay cash, or get a very short-term loan on a reasonably priced vehicle, so you don't have car payment, because that's a big cost to keep you from having money to build. So build something small, keep your costs down, and learn to build. There's tons of videos. I mean, there's no reason why you can't learn how to build. If you want to build small, so build your confidence up, great, do that. I taught people how to build sheds on this channel. I've taught people how to build houses on this channel, tiny houses and larger homes. Now we're building a much larger home. This is the largest home that I'll be building on this channel right now, which is 1,200 square foot footprint in here. And we're building a different style. So this is a pole construction building. Some people would call this a barn dough. You're probably familiar with that term, where they turn a pole building structure into a home. It's got a lot of appeal these days. They're reasonably easy to put up, and some would say less expensive, depends on how you finish them out, but here we are. So you might need to build a small house and then add on to that house as you have the money to do so. We did that the first time. You might build a small house and be happy with it, that's all you need. Or you might build a small house and and sell it and make a really good profit. When I sold the house on the coast, I tripled my money. I spent $100,000 on that house and I sold it for $3 million. So the nice thing was I lived in that house for more than 2 years, so in my taxes, the gain or the profit that I made on that house was excluded. I didn't have to pay taxes on that money, so another bonus. So I lived in that house basically for free, made a lot of money off of it, didn't have to pay taxes on that money, and that propelled me forward so that I'm building this property now and building out this piece of property, and I'm paying cash to do this as well. I'm not doing everything in here, so I know I look really young, but I'm 61 this year as of January, and this is 2024. But I'm still able to stand up and pound nails, so that's what I've been doing. I framed up all this sections in here and had somebody help me tip them up because these sections are 12 feet tall. And then we're adding these pony walls that we're going to carry up a ladder and set on top of these to finish building up to the top or the bottom of these trusses. And these are going to have windows in them. And so it might take you some time, but here's what I'm going to tell you. Raise your hand if you don't want a mortgage, because I don't, and I don't have one, and I haven't had one for a long time. And I tell you, you got a lot of things you can do with that extra money. What I will tell you is, you're going to pay on a mortgage probably your whole life. Most people don't get out of their mortgages, and here's a little bit about it. So, typical mortgage is 30 years. It's a long time. It's 360 monthly payments to get to the other end of that mortgage. By the time you've done that, whatever the purchase price of your home was, you have spent 3 times that because of interest on that loan over that length of time. That's a little sobering, maybe a little depressing, and I've had people say, you know, building a house is a lot of work. I don't think I'd want to do that. I'm thinking, well, then you're going to spend most, if not all your life making payments on a house. So you have to go to work and do that. So trading one for the other. The long and short of it is you could build and be out of a mortgage or have a very small short-term mortgage on a piece of property and then be debt-free well in advance of ever having to pay off a mortgage and save a tremendous amount of money in the process. Now, do you have to do every part of the building process? No, you do not. I don't think you do. I don't. For instance, I didn't pour this concrete. I got a company come in that knows how to do this better than me, that does it every day, and I had them pour it because I didn't want to goof it up. It's not my forte. And of course, you have some specialized equipment to do concrete finishing work, which I don't have and I don't care to have. It doesn't look like fun to me. The framing I know. I learned plumbing, I learned electrical. That saves me a ton of money, and if you want to see your savings as you go along, which might get you excited, have companies come out and bid the different parts of building the house so you can see what they're going to charge you versus what it's going to cost you when you just buy the materials and do it yourself. Can you do that? Yes, you can. Can you learn this? I did, and I didn't have any, I grew up in Southern California, didn't learn anything about building trades of any type. I was just a city kid, and it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I started learning how to build. And I learned it by working with other people. Sometimes I did it for free just to help out and learn the process when they were building their projects. And sometimes I got paid, so I feel like I got paid to learn when I was doing that. I've just picked these up over time. The cool thing is again, I had to do that because there was no internet, no YouTube back then. And you couldn't just go Google how do you wire in an outlet or a switch, or how do you plumb, install a toilet or a shower. That's all on YouTube now. So there's no reason why you can't just go watch those videos and learn how to do this stuff. It's so much easier today. I've put a lot of that up myself, and I've watched other people's videos, and there's tons of information out there to teach you how to do this. You can hire people to help you if you can't do all this yourself. I certainly can't stand these walls up by myself. I couldn't put these poles in. If you're looking at these poles, they were originally 22 feet long, and they're 6 inches by 8 inches. They're very heavy, and I dropped 3 feet into the ground, and then we cut the excess off when we got where we wanted to go. That's a lot of work, And it can be intimidating, but it doesn't mean you can't do it, and you can't find some help to do it, and pay somebody a little bit of money rather than pay, to have the entire house built, or buy a house that's already built, which is gonna cost you a lot more. There's a tremendous amount of profit in a house build. If you do it yourself, you can save that money and not have to spend it paying other people. The last house I built, I didn't want to do the insulation, so I hired somebody to do it. It was almost as cheap as me buying it and doing it myself, because I got a better price on the material than I could going down to the big box store. So there's ways around it. I learned electrical. It wasn't easy, I figured it out. I did a lot of head scratching and trial and error, and learned from people, and it took me 2 years to build that house, because like I said, I'm in my 60s, I'm not busting it, I'm not doing 40-hour work weeks on this project. And but it's doable. And I passed all my inspections. I had all the normal inspections you would have from house building that I went through, all the different phases that I had to get past, and everything got passed, and I got my certificate of occupancy on the house, and got all done. I didn't do the roof. I can do the roof. I didn't want to do the roof, so I paid somebody else to come out and shingle my roof for me, because I didn't want to do it. I did all the finish work. I did all the exterior trim and siding. I did all the interior trim and siding, or trim out and the walls, and set all the electrical appliances, and set all the plumbing appliances. Everything else, my wife and I did. Bottom line is, you can do it if it appeals to you, that you don't want to have to go out and pay a mortgage, and most people don't get out of it from under them, and here's why. They get the 30-year mortgage, they pay on it for a few years, maybe the payment brings the principal down a little bit, plus maybe the price of houses goes up a little bit, so now you have this equity. It's worth more now, or maybe it's worth, you've got equity in it because you've paid off a certain amount of it, so there's money sitting there available to you, and the bank will offer you a loan, basically turn your house into a credit card, and give you a revolving account on that, which allows you to go out and spend the money, the equity off your house, to do virtually whatever you want to. There's no real stipulation on that. You just have to make the small monthly payment, but now you have a second mortgage. That's what happens. People want to buy a boat, they want to get an RV, they want to pay for somebody's wedding, or go on a great vacation, or spruce up around the place, whatever it is. There's myriad things. Bottom line is, they keep you in debt, because they make it very attractive for you to pull that money out and utilize it, and so that you're not getting out from under your mortgage, you're just perpetuating it into eternity. That's what happens to a lot of people. Not very many people own their homes outright, because they never pay them off, because they just get accustomed and normalize being in debt. And I think that's a bad thing for everybody, because it's crippling for a lot of people that are struggling to make payments, and might even have a house that's not worth what they paid for to begin with, because of the economy. And so if you build, you'll never have that be the case, because you're going to have a tremendous amount of equity in your project because you did it yourself. And so that's kind of the pathway to getting there. It's not a straight line. It's not for sissies, I would say. It can be intimidating. It can end marriages. I've seen that happen. But I think it's worth doing if you want to not have to pay a monthly payment to live somewhere all your life. It's a whole lot better feeling when you own your property and you own your house, and you've got taxes to pay and utilities. That's it. It's a heck of a lot less than spending all that money perpetually making payments that never seem to end. So if you guys want to follow this, subscribe, like it, share it. If it's beneficial to other people, I want to always create value on this channel. I took a big chunk of time off of here because I was deciding whether I wanted to keep doing this or not. I feel like I'm compelled to help and teach, and hopefully people will get something of value out of these videos. And so if you want to watch the process, I'm going to build this out. We're finishing up shelling it in right now, and then we're going to start doing interior walls, plumbing, electrical, insulation, finishing it out. You'll be able to watch the process. hopefully pick up some really good tips and tricks and things that I've learned over the years that make, kind of demystify and take the scariness out of building a house, because it's not that scary, and you can goof up and it's not gonna get ruined. You can just, do it twice if you have to or whatever. So I'm not gonna keep rambling. This is my new project. If you're interested, follow along. If you've got questions or you wanna see something in particular, if you wanna know what else can we do with this channel, if it's something that's within my realm of ability, we'll look into doing that. Otherwise, we'll call this one good, and I'll see you on the next video.